How's it going? This is Dylan.
This is Leslie.
And this is Music and Mascara in the car. Again, still traveling. We want to talk about one of the other keys to success in business. And and it's a real important kind of distinction and understanding to come to. Because one of the things, one big objection we hear all the time is, or not objection, or maybe lack of confidence, maybe, or something. They say, "Oh, I could never do what you do. You know, you're an entrepreneur and you're off doing your thing, and you know, I could never do that. I couldn't be that risky. I couldn't do all that." So let's talk about the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee. Because some people make very good employees.
Absolutely.
And they have great jobs. They take care of their families. They make, and they are great employees. And they feel like they would suck as an entrepreneur and that they would fail. So let's think about why that is. Okay, so at least in our culture where we live in America, we're pretty much programmed from the time we grow up. Little kids going to school, go to college. Get a job. Even when we get a job as a teenager, we're basically programmed to go work for 2 weeks, get a job, get a paycheck.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's pretty much, whether you get paid monthly or a couple times a month or weekly or whatever, but usually work 2 weeks, get a paycheck for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Pay the bills. And typically that...
Do it again.
And do it again. And typically that number... So it's weird to say the words instant gratification as relating to our job, but it is kind of true that basically we work for these 2 weeks and we expect to go in there on Friday and pick up a check.
Yep.
For that work, period.
And even though you know what it is, usually you're just super stoked.
Yeah. So it's like beat into our brains.
Yep.
So the instant the word entrepreneur comes into our brain, then all of a sudden it sounds like this risky craziness. But really the only difference is patience. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Or the main difference that we're talking about today.
No, I agree.
Is patience.
Yeah, because an employee has that gratification need, and they're just going to go to work and they're just going to get a check, and that's all they need and that's all they want, and that's okay. But the patience of an entrepreneur, because they know that it takes time to build.
They could work for 2 weeks and nothing could happen.
Yeah. And that's it's a tough choice, but it's fun.
Yep, and to be prepared for that. So where the patience comes in is, what is this, my 9th startup now? That we're working on 9th or 10th. I would say we're really onto our 10th. And we basically know that it's going to take 2 or 3 years for us to really make money with this thing. And it's going to be a lot of late nights, and it's going to be a lot of extra time outside of our other work, and it's going to be, a lot of that to make this thing go. It's going to be a lot of work outside of that.
Right.
And it's going to take patience.
Yeah, and the business mindset, like they go into owning a business knowing that might not be in profit for a few years. But the thing that employees take for granted is they're a part of this system, right? They're just building somebody else's dream.
Right. So the whole not making a profit for 3 years and working hard to make this profit, they're still doing it.
Right.
They're just doing it for someone else.
Yeah.
And they may not see the risk and the numbers and everything because they're just taking home their paycheck, but they're doing the same thing.
Everything started as a small business.
Right. Everything started, that's right. That is true.
Walmart is Sam Walton, and it started as a small business. And you cannot, Starbucks, people bash Starbucks, but they started as a small business. You cannot fault somebody for being a successful small business. Why would you? It's amazing. That's great.
Right. Right. And so one of the reasons people fail in business or are scared of going into business for themselves is because they set expectations of what they think they should receive
based on their pre-programming.
Yeah. We're programmed for every 2 weeks, so that means that I should start this business and I should work this hard for this long and I should get this money.
Yep.
And it doesn't always go like that.
Right.
And it takes a lot longer, and it takes more late nights, and it takes, a lot more work. And
so then back to the instant gratification part, though. So people want that, and they're always searching for that. So even people that are willing to try it, let's say they try to build a business, they try network marketing, and then it doesn't go like whatever that picture is in their head. And then they get that like shiny object, grass is greener syndrome, and they're like, oh, well, I'll just go try this. Whether it's, and there's all these teaser words. Like people hear ground floor opportunity and they're like, oh, squirrel, I'm going to go over here and try this because this opportunity must not be the one for me. And the thing about that, in any business, we've talked about this before, is if anybody is successful in making money,
doing what you're doing,
then you have to look at yourself. Like, it's internal. It's not, let's jump ship and try different things.
Yeah,
it's to have the patience to stick it out and build.
If you have a good business model and somebody is making money doing what you're doing, that means you can make that money too.
Absolutely.
So if you're like, this isn't working, I need to go somewhere else, but it's working for somebody else, then who's the problem?
Yep.
Has nothing to do with the business.
Yeah, and I know many people that have, one of my mentors is, I think she failed at like 8 different businesses before she made it successful. And she'll tell you that, like, she went from company to company to company thinking, well, this isn't the one for me, this isn't the one for me, or something's wrong with this company, or this just whatever, fill in the blank excuse, until she finally realized it was her. She was the common denominator in all of that failure. And until she had confidence and built up herself and believed in herself to be successful, it didn't happen.
And have the patience to stick out the first hard part.
Absolutely.
You work and work and work and nothing happens, and you work and work and nothing happens, and a bunch of people tell you no.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely a slower build. Like, no matter what you choose, it's a slower build, but is it going to be worth it in the end? In any business, there's so much investment in the beginning before it turns to profit.
And the thing is, again, if it's a good business plan and if it's a good market and you've done all that research and you're fairly confident in all that, or you are confident in all that, then the patience will be worth it in the end. You might eat some ramen along the way, I've been in situations starting businesses where it got pretty dire for me. Really, there was one in particular that I can think of. It got pretty dire for me, man, like bad, real bad. And I will tell you, and I wouldn't say this then, and I wouldn't admit it then.
Yeah, but how much was it mental, right?
Well, yes, because I don't know that I would say this then. I don't think I'd learned this by then, and this is why that business didn't fail. But it was my fault.
Did fail?
It did fail.
Oh,
it did fail. It did fail. This is why, because it was my fault. Because I thought it was the business's fault, and it wasn't.
Right.
It was the fact that I didn't have enough patience to make it go. And since then, I've never made that mistake because of that.
Right.
It cost me a lot of money, and like I said, it hurt. But
but there's so many tools and research. We say have patience and you have to build it, but there's so many resources available for people now.
Right.
To learn, and that's why you share these type of things. You learn from what other people have done and what other people have experienced, and you grow from there.
Yep. No, that's really it. And so really, kind of the whole point of this whole thing,
what difference?
The difference between an entrepreneur and an employee is just the patience to be able to make the thing go. whatever it is. Get out of the 2-week mindset and be in it for the long haul.
Right.
And if you can put yourself in that position to be able to be in it for the long haul, and you have a good business plan and a good idea,
Yep.
and you really believe in it, there's no reason for it to fail. Except for anything that happens in here to mess it up.
Yes. We are our own worst enemies sometimes.
Yep. My name is Dylan,
I'm Leslie.
and this is Music and Mascara in the Car.